Well, good afternoon, fellow Rotarians and distinguished and honored guests. Welcome to the weekly Thursday noon Rotary Club of Louisville meeting. I'm Barbara Sexton Smith, and I am the current president-elect of this club, and I will be serving today as president stand-in because President Ken is supposed to be in his car driving from Lexington, and he has been chairing the Kentucky Broadcasters Association meeting all morning, and he wanted me to share that with you all. Delene wants me to share with you that I am also the executive in residence at Louisville Metro Government. I am on a slight hiatus right now until the mayor calls again. And then lastly, please silence your all's devices, whatever they may be. We've had a few bell ringers in the last couple of meetings. All right, now at this time, I want to invite Cliff Elgin to join me at the podium to give our invocation and a special message. Cliff?
Good afternoon. Bear with me because I get a little choked up reading this sometimes. I have a poem I've wanted to share with the club for a while, but changed my mind this morning because this is the eve of Memorial Day weekend. So bear with me, please. I need my glasses. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who gave their lives that this nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a greater sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it cannot forget what they did here. It is us for the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion, that we here highly resolve that those dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth, a newborn birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. It is estimated that there were 51,000 casualties at Gettysburg. And it's also estimated that about 700,000 men died in that war. Since the Civil War, another 600,000 men and women have died in the service to this country. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor those who've given their last full measure of devotion.
All right, thank you, Cliff, for that so very much. And if I understood correctly, that's 1.3 million brothers and sisters that we've lost fighting for what this country stands for and believes in, and fighting for each and every one of us and our family members and our generations to come behind us. All right, at this time, I'm going to invite Janet Patterson to join me up here at the podium. Janet is the Director of Development for Bridgehaven, and she's going to lead us in the four-way test and the Pledge of Allegiance. Janet?
All right, here we go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
four-way test.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Janet. And now this is the time in the meeting when we get to meet all of our guests. All right, so fellow Rotarians, if you brought a guest or responsible for a guest being here today, please join me over here to my left, your right to the microphone. And Rotarians, Anne-Marie, it's all up to you to set the stage. We want you to give your guest's name and their title and what they associate with in terms of an organization. That means parenthetically, no bios, no resumes, and those kind of things. All right, fellow Rotarians, you with me to keep Anne-Marie on? Who's your guest?
Good morning. My guest today is Brooks Baker. He is Aircraft Detailing Specialist with Real Clean Aircraft Detailing.
President-elect Barbara, my name is Ray Strothman, and I've been a member forever. My guest today is Jackie Swartz, and Jackie is the founder and the chief executive for Planet Einstein Center for Excellence in Learning.
Hello, President Lady Barbara. I'm Ginger Wallace, United States Air Force retired. My guest today is Meg Rush. Meg is leader of an organization called Women Igniting Change in Kentuckiana. And if you don't know about it, I encourage you to learn more.
Good morning, I'm Melissa Cobb with Sinorama Downtown, and I have a new friend and guest today, Felice Temple, and he is here to plug in with Rotary to learn how to support, and we're happy to have him. Thank you.
Okay, Tom, the pressure's on because everybody has followed the rules so far. Here you go.
I'm sometimes not a good rule follower.
That's all right, Tom.
All right, but I'll do my best. So I'm Tom Crimmins. I'm a retired friend and consultant, and it's my pleasure to introduce my guest, Gerald Joyner, who has joined the organization that I worked in for 30 years in the franchise business, and we've been getting together a few times, and he's interested in visiting and learning more about Rotary.
Outstanding. All right. All right, Rotarians, I am going to ask for a round of applause for all your fellow Rotarians who did that so beautifully. Round of applause. All right, so I do have a brief message from President Ken and from Delene that to the committee leadership. So if you are on a committee chair, co-chair, vice chair, please pay attention because May 31 is your deadline as a committee leader right now for this current year we're in to submit your impact reports or your carryover request. And those of you that are feeling lost right now and wondering what Barbara's talking about, committee chairs and co-chairs and vice chairs for this year. Not next year, not those ones that I called and said next year. We need to have your report of what's been happening these last 10 or 11 months because it's going to impact the numbers and how we measure the impact of the club and whether or not your carryover request, meaning monies you requested last year, if you didn't use them for whatever reason and you want to ask a carryover, we need that done formally. Delene, how did I do with that? Okay, that was a lot for me to understand. Okay, now let's talk about some fun things coming up. DACDB. Raise your hand if you know how to log on to DACDB. I'm not judging anybody here, I'm just curious. All right, and if you don't know how to log on to DACDB, or you've never heard of it, or you're wondering what it is, just ask someone that raised their hand. Because it is about the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I've learned how to use it in this last year. And I've been in this club since 2012. So it's never too late to jump on DACDB. Here's why you want to go there. You go to DACDB, it's an app you put on your phone and your computer, or you could do this the old-fashioned way, George. We can go on the internet to LouisvilleRotary.org and get the same information for upcoming events. because Recenter has another meal service opportunity. That's going to be on Wednesday, May 27th. If you're around and available next week, sign up and go do that. And then Repair Affair, that's coming out of our Lifeline Committee. They're also going to have the annual Repair Affair Day coming up on June 6th, Saturday. That is so much fun. Now you're thinking, I don't swing a hammer, I don't climb on top of roofs, I don't plant bushes. Well, you got to do something. So come out and we'll find something for you to do. And then next Sunday, June 7th. This is one of the most spectacular, exciting things our club does every year. It's at the private home of Craig Sherman, and it is the Sherman Summer Special for an alliteration. It will be at his home on Sunday, June 7th. You can bring your sore knees and sore elbows from Saturday Repair Affair and come and have great food and drink, fellowship and fun and music. 4 to 7:30 at Craig Sherman's house. And you'll need to RSVP for that, by the way. All right. So then, if you've not already done this, we are asking that you follow us on social media. And of course, that means LinkedIn, Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. I think I know what one of those things is. I know what Facebook is. Okay. I got a ways to go. I'm looking for somebody to teach me those other ones if you're up for that. All right, and then post photos of things you're doing. Post things about the club. Have fun with it, and then tag the Rotary Club of Louisville so we can then share that out. Now, each week, we have members that have joined our club in the last 12 months. So if you've joined in the last 12 months, I just want you to stand up right now so we can show you some Rotary Club love. That's right, come on. Wow, looky there. All right, and those of us who were not standing for that reason, because I realized I am standing up here, Anne Marie. For those of you that were not standing, look next to you, and if somebody stood up, talk to them. Introduce yourself to somebody. Try to meet somebody this week that you hadn't met before in Rotary. All right, here we go. And we love to learn about longer-term Rotarians. This was an idea that President Ken came up with a year ago that he wanted to be part of his legacy as our club president this year. So he has asked me today to continue that in his absence, to invite Anne Marie Zerg to the microphone, and you're going to tell us in 2 minutes all about you and about your Rotary experience. Anne Marie.
Thank you. I would just start by saying that, I have the Americanized version of Zwerg. It is Zwerg here in the United States. And it does mean dwarf in German. So I'm glad that the genes have phased out. And there are now more Zwergs in the United States than there are in Germany. So I am grateful to have this opportunity. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself because I wear several different hats. And I have literally and figuratively taken quite the journey to get here. So today, I am the owner of Real Clean Aircraft Detailing, Kentuckiana Bluegrass, where we specialize in premium mobile aircraft, interior and exterior detailing, and restoration services throughout Kentucky, southern Indiana, and soon southern Ohio. We offer our services to private aircraft owners, corporate fleet managers, charter operators, FBOs, MROs, and restoration and aviation brokers. In many ways, aviation has been a consistent thread throughout my life. I was born into an Air Force family, American Airlines pilot later, and I remember my father coming to visit me when I was in college in his own private aircraft. So I'm not the pilot myself, though. That's why I hire one on my team. But that gave me a sense of adventure, and from an early age, I developed that appreciation of aviation, the discipline and the precision involved. That love of adventure takes me to hobbies such as rock climbing, caving, motorcycling, and whitewater rafting, but it also leads me to travel and live and work and study abroad. So in the early 1990s, I probably made one of the stupidest decisions. I moved to Medellin, Colombia. Nobody makes the decision to move to Colombia in the 90s, but I'm back, so it worked out just fine. I had previously done some study abroads in Mexico, Guatemala. I did a summer internship in NATO, traveling between England, Germany, and Belgium. And then I went to Colombia thinking it was going to be a one-year trip around South America, but Hollywood, Hallmark kind of story. I met a man and stayed. So nearly 30 years later, it was time to come back. My born and raised children were in the United States for their college education. I divorced my Colombian husband, and my mother had a terminal cancer diagnosis. She was in Virginia. So I came back. I was coming with a PhD. I had done my PhD with the Nordic School of International Business, which is a consortium of Aalto, Copenhagen Business School, Norwegian School of Business, Leeds, Stockholm School of Economics. I had 20 years experience teaching international business and organizational behavior in Colombia, Mexico, Germany, and China. So I came to University of Louisville. I'm sure you all are aware that the United States is in an interesting phase right now. For someone coming back after 30 years out, I landed in the twilight zone. So University of Louisville was not a good fit. But Louisville is, because I have found communities such as this. I have also found a new husband, so I'm 3 weeks newlywed. I am also on the board of advisors for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, so I know Felipe. I am the VP of programming for the WOA Network, which is a nonprofit supporting 4,000 women business owners and entrepreneurs in the Kentuckiana region, and the owner of Real Clean Detailing, Aircraft Detailing. So I hope that was me in a nutshell, and I am now glad to hear from another, where'd he go? Omar. There, Omar. Yeah, you did. I know. I was. But yes, very happy to have given this introduction and to now share with another global-minded professional. So thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So as you can see, she's flying high, and when she got to that Hollywood Hallmark marriage thing on the first marriage, I thought, that's how to describe my marriage with Lacey. Hollywood Hallmark. All right. And I just can't wait to find out if this 3-week marriage on week 4 is Hollywood Hallmark. Okay. Maybe we'll have a panel discussion about lively international relationships at one of our... Yes. Okay. Oh, build that right into your speech. Okay, and so now what I want to do is invite another a wonderful distinguished Rotarian. I just love you. Amy Luttrell, President and CEO of Goodwill Industries Kentucky. Please join me at the microphone for an incredibly special award. Amy?
Thank you, President-elect Barbara, and I forgot what that other title was that you said. Well, hello, everybody, and boy, I hate to follow Anne Marie, but I think we really do have something special, and I can follow Anne Marie.
Yes, you can.
So today, we get to recognize a member of our club for Rotary's Lifetime Service Award. So I'm going to tell you all about that, and this is one of those where you don't find out who it is until like later in the presentation, so you can guess in the meantime. So this year's recipient has been a member of this club for more than 40 years, so that kind of narrows it down. He or she has served on the board, has chaired the District Membership and Engagement Committee and the Grants Subcommittee. He or she has served as the first chair of the District 6710 Club Visioning Committee and also organized a visioning for that district in that same year. Has also, well, already did that. Also one of our most regular attendees for a Rotarian, and for a 10-year stretch, get this, had a perfect attendance record. Okay, how many people have done that? I never have. I've never done that. No. He or she is a major donor, level 1, so an example for us all, a Polio Plus Society member, my favorite, and received the Rotary Foundation's Presidential Citation in 2017. So this Rotarian and spouse have hosted more than 50 international visitors in their home. That includes visits facilitated by the World Affairs Council of Louisville and Southern Indiana, people from Russia, Ukraine, Moldova, and Belarus. Rotary guests have come from Africa, Western Europe, South America, and Central America. He or she participated in Rotary's group study exchange in the Netherlands and also in friendship exchange visits in India, or to India and New Zealand. So this year's award recipient has really dedicated his whole life really to service, and that's what made Rotary such a great fit. His or her career was dedicated to people, helping people who are often excluded from society and from workforce to secure employment. He spent 30 years of his career in Louisville, where he led Goodwill, Kentucky, so there's a pretty big hint for many of you. From a very small organization that was facing bankruptcy, and I remember those days. I was not in Kentucky, but I remember that. We were all saying, oh, Louisville's doing really bad. So that's where he started, to a strong, healthy organization that's capable of real impact, creating more jobs and employment opportunities for people in our community and the whole Commonwealth who really need that, including in the rural areas. So during his tenure at Goodwill, just thousands of people were able to improve their lives through those opportunities that were offered to them. And of course, by now, you know that I'm referring to my friend Roland Blahnik, who's here at a front table. And in a minute, I'll ask you to join me, Roland. But many of you probably know some of those facts that I was sharing with you. What you may not know is how Roland's influence really extended beyond Kentucky into the broader Goodwill world. You know, we're a national network, and Roland was a mentor. His opinion was very highly respected. I've been around for about as long as he has, so I can vouch for that. And he's received many Goodwill awards during his career, as well as 9 Goodwill awards. Last year, Roland was inducted into the Goodwill Hall of Fame. And there are only 60 people over Goodwill's 124-year history who are in that Hall of Fame. So that's a recognition of the impact that he has had, and we are lucky to have him in this club. So he's also served on boards, the Kentucky Statewide Council for Vocational Rehab, Adelante Hispanic Achievers from 2015 to 2023, and when he retired from Goodwill in 2014, the city proclaimed a Roland Blahnik Appreciation Day, and Lieutenant Governor Jerry Abramson named him as an outstanding Kentuckian. So today we're just taking a minute to honor Roland's lifetime of service with this wonderful, prestigious award. So Roland, on behalf of President Ken and President-elect Barbara and our whole club, I congratulate you and thank you for your service. So please join us up.
All right, Roland, we'd like to hear a few remarks from you, if you would, please.
This is quite a surprise. I've been in this Rotary Club for a long time, but I found Rotary when I was in Michigan before I came down here, and I was fortunate in my life of having a job that I found at Goodwill Industries, which was serving people who really needed services over many years. So it would have been very easy for me to just focus on the good that I was doing during my career, because sometimes we get very fortunate in a career and meaning all come together in your life. But I was looking for something that would broaden my working with people and bring me into working with different sorts of people. So I found Rotary when I was in Michigan, and it did that for me. It had the 4-way test kind of resonates. It gave me a chance to work with others in many different formats. Amy didn't mention this, but I've also been chairman of committees that were called something close to serving people with disabilities. And frankly, I was resisted accepting those roles and tried to go into roles that other skills could be used. And other people work with people who are not in your field for, I was gonna say 8 hours a day, but I'll admit in Kentucky it took me more like 10 hours a day to dig it out of that hole it had dug for itself from '84, and it took about a decade to do that. So I want to encourage any of you who are in Rotary is get involved. I didn't push very hard. I just responded when people asked. And but when you start responding when people ask, it seems like more people ask. So if you just start by getting involved, let that grow, you can end up with doing a lot of great things, and you can balance it with your work life. Because if you're going to be at something for 35, 40 years, you better balance it with your work life, or you might end up with needing services from people before you retire. So thank you very much for this.
All right, Roland, very well said. As I sat here so close to Roland and watched him and listened to him, I thought standing right next to me within a couple of feet is what I've been thinking about and pondering about almost my entire adult life, and that is, how does one get one's vocation and avocation to be in the same canoe or to be aligned? And you have done that, and you've done it so beautifully and so smoothly and eloquently. You're a living legend, not that we're stacking up the awards here for you, but thank you for sharing that, because I believe we find our purpose in life by service to others, and you've done that with a 5-star. So thank you so much. At this time, I'm going to change things up and invite Vernon Foster to join me up here at the podium, because Vernon, who serves as the Senior Executive Director and the Assistant Dean, you got 2 titles over there at the University of Louisville College of Business, and he's also our co-chair of the Rotary Leadership Fellows Committee and a Paul Harris +2. So come on up here, and Vernon's going to introduce today's speaker. Thank you, Vernon.
Thank you. What an exciting day to be here with Roland. You know, I'm thinking, Omar, before I introduce you, one global citizen to another global citizen, that could be another lifetime member of the World Trade Center, Kentucky, right? We should talk about that. But before I introduce Omar, let me also introduce his guest, Steve Marks, who we did not introduce earlier. Steve, stand. He's part of the World Trade Center, Kentucky as well. Omar is going to give you just a snippet of what his life has been and his journey. He's probably not going to share all the things that you really should know and learn about him and all the journeys he's played. But when I think of the 250-year anniversary of America, I think of our song, you know, Bombs Bursting in the Air, and I'm thinking of a recent conversation with you in UAE with bombs bursting in the air. But with that being said, it is clearly an honor to introduce someone. I serve on his board, fully invested and believe in what he is trying to accomplish with the World Trade Center, Kentucky, how he has literally transformed that organization into something that is powerful in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, something that's really, really important to us. So keep that in mind. So here's what he says about himself. He left off the fact that he has an MBA from U of L. So let's get that in there first. Go Cards. So Dr. Omar Ayyash is president and CEO of the World Trade Center, Kentucky, where he leads the state's premier international trade organization and drives global market access for U.S. companies. With a career spanning international affairs, innovation ecosystems, and cross-border partnerships, Omar has worked at the intersection of business, government, and higher education. He maintains a dual presence between Kentucky and Dubai, bombs bursting in the air, offering a rare on-the-ground perspective on global commerce, U.S. Middle East relations, and emerging economic corridors. Omar is recognized for building strategic partnerships between the United States and the MENA region and for helping companies navigate international expansion in an increasingly complex political environment. With that, Omar, please.
Thank you, Vernon. Did you turn off this mic?
Yes.
Fantastic. Good afternoon, everyone. Before I get started, a couple of things that I want to share with you here. One, if I knew that my good friend Barbara was going to be leading this message, I would have totally written different remarks to keep in line with her energy. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful energy. The second thing that I will share with you is I will always be indebted to this club because I think in the late 90s I was part of a Rotary exchange program, a group study exchange program to the country of Japan. It was a wonderful scholarship that they bestowed upon me with 3 other people from the state of Kentucky, and we traveled the entire country for a whole month, meeting with Rotarians from all over the world, and wow, the way they received us was just phenomenal. All right, so I do have some prepared remarks. Part of it is, usually I'm the type of guy that speaks off the cuff, but to be honest with you, I'm getting a little old, and jet lag is setting in too, and my memory might not be there, but I want to hit all the important remarks and what have you. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. It is truly a pleasure to be back with you again. I was here 2 years ago. Whenever I come into these rooms, like Rotary clubs, business leaders, people deeply invested in their communities, I always leave optimistic. Because at the end of the day, despite all the noise in the world, as Vernon said, bombs in the UAE, progress still happens through relationships, through trust, and through people who are willing to stay engaged. Today, I want to share a little bit about my personal journey. It is a journey that started in the Middle East, continued in Europe, took shape here in Kentucky, and today connects me to Dubai and the global business world around. But more importantly, I want to talk about the journey that has taught me about fear, identity, resilience, and why international trade and human connections matter more today than ever before. Because we are living through a moment of extraordinary global uncertainty. And yet, despite everything happening around us, I still remain incredibly hopeful. Let me explain why. I was born in Jordan in the 70s. I forgot when I was born. I was born in Jordan in the 70s to a Palestinian family. Some of my earliest memories involved hearing conversations about instability and conflict in the region. I remember one specific moment specifically. I woke up one morning and walked into the living room, and there was my father sitting by the radio, listening to the news. A war had erupted in Lebanon. Now remember, this was before smartphones, before social media, before cable news. Families actually gathered around the radios. And I remember seeing the tension on my father's face. As a child, I didn't fully understand geopolitics, but I understood emotions. I understood uncertainty, and I understood fear. That was probably my first realization that where you are born can shape how you experience the world. A few years later, my family moved to Vienna, Austria. That move changed my life. Suddenly, I found myself attending the American International School in Vienna, surrounded by students from all over the world. Different cultures, different languages, different religions, and different political systems. For the first time, I began to understand the power of international education and global exposure. That's what Rotary is all about. But even then, the outside world had a way of entering into everyday life. Some of you might remember this. In the 80s, there were terrorist attacks in Europe on two airports, the Vienna airport and the Italy airport. I was there. I remember that specific moment. As a young Middle Eastern kid walking through the streets of Vienna, people looked at me different. Every time I got onto a public transportation, I could feel the second glance. People were wondering, who's this kid? What does he represent? Should I be concerned? Now imagine being 12 or 13 years old and becoming aware of that dynamic. It makes you hyper-aware. It makes you cautious. It makes you realize how quickly fear can divide people. There was another moment during that time I will never forget. At one point, the Libyan government threatened American interest in Vienna, and there were only three: the American school, the embassy, and the cultural center. And for an entire year, our school was essentially on lockdown. Our school buses were escorted every single day by Austrian police vehicles. Think about that for a moment. As teenagers, we normalized armored cars on the way to school. And here's the interesting things about human beings. We normalize everything. The lesson would come back decades later during my time in Dubai, most recently. But anyhow, let me fast forward to the early 90s. I came to Kentucky to attend the University of Kentucky. And yes, later on got an MBA from the University of Louisville. And almost immediately after arriving, the first Gulf War erupted. Again, the geopolitical climate shifted overnight. And once again, my identity was complicated. I joke sometimes that during that period, I became very Italian very quickly. People laugh, and that is how we deal with this. But underneath that joke was a real feeling many immigrants have to go through. The feeling that sometimes it is safer to blend in than stand out. But here's what's important. Kentucky also became my home. It became the place where I built relationships, built businesses, built friendships, built community. And over time, I discovered something powerful. When people know you personally, fear disappears. I'm going to repeat that. When people know you personally, fear disappears. Relationships humanize people. The lesson became even more clear after 9/11. At that time, I owned a sandwich shop here in Louisville called Omar's Gyro. Like everybody else, we were devastated watching these attacks unfold, so we closed the shop that day. Nobody knew what the next several days would feel like for an Arab American or a Muslim American. There was fear everywhere. But something remarkable happened. The next day we reopened, and the Louisville community showed up. Customers came in not just for sandwiches, they came in to support us as human beings. That movement stayed with me, because in one of the most emotionally charged moments in modern American history, people chose connection over division. Not long after that, I worked for Mayor Armstrong in Louisville, and I remember participating in interfaith and community conversations immediately following 9/11. People were trying to understand one another, trying to process fear, trying to not let anger consume the community. And I realized something very important. Most people, regardless of their politics, their nationality, fundamentally want the same things. We all want safety, dignity, opportunity, stability for our families, and hope for our children. The realization shaped me throughout my professional career. In 2009, I moved to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. And honestly, many Americans at that time didn't fully understand Dubai or what it had become. What I saw there was extraordinary. A country focused on innovation, infrastructure, global business, education, safety, and ambitious long-term thinking. Dubai became one of the world's greatest crossroads. You can have breakfast with someone from India, You can have lunch with someone from Nigeria, coffee with someone from Germany, and dinner with someone from Saudi Arabia, all in the same day. It is the most globally connected place I've ever experienced. And from a business perspective, it became obvious to me that the center of gravity in the global economy was shifting. Not away from America, but toward a far more connected world. That brings me to my recent events. As many of you know, tensions in the Middle East escalated significantly this past year. And I happened to be in Dubai the last 2 months. And I got many text messages from my friends here in Louisville checking on me while I was there. You know, after the first week or two, honestly, life went back to normal. But the first couple of weeks were pretty unsettling. My wife works for the American government there, and we started receiving evacuation notices immediately and security alerts. And every decision became a decision-making exercise. Do we leave? Do we stay? Do we overreact? Do we wait? And as a husband and a father, those decisions became incredibly heavy. I was speaking regularly with friends in military and intelligence circles trying to assess the situations. Meanwhile, many Americans living in the UAE were also watching each other closely. Everyone was trying to read the signal. Actually, one of the things that I did, there was so much noise around the news, and the news, it becomes overwhelming, and you don't know what's real and what's not real, and things of that nature. And one tactic I almost had to do every night, thanks to AI, is I would go ask AI, you know, how is the situation? What information do you have? Should I leave? Should I not leave? This is my neighborhood. Well, what's the situation in my neighborhood? And it really helped me throughout that experience understanding whether we need to navigate or not. What struck me the most was how resilient the UAE remained throughout the crisis. Flights were disrupted, airspace concerns existed, emergency alerts would appear on our phones. Sometimes we would receive an alert, shelter in place due to interception of drones or missiles, and then 30 minutes later we would get a thank you for doing that. One funny moment in terms of how you normalize everything, my wife and I were asleep in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning. She gets more special alerts because she has an American government issued phone. And it was 8 alerts later and she's still not getting up to turn it off. That's how much you normalize things. And it's like, honey, I had to nudge her. Your phone is ringing, you know. So anyhow, people in reality, when I was down there, went back to work. Restaurants reopened, meetings resumed. It was surreal. But again, it reminded me how we adapt as human beings. Now let me be very clear. No one wants instability. No one wants war. Nobody wants escalation. But living through these moments gave me even a deeper appreciation for the importance of diplomacy, economic partnerships, and global cooperations. Because when countries are economically interconnected, the cost of conflict becomes higher for everyone. Trade creates relationships. Trade creates relationships. And trust creates stability. This is the one reason I'm so passionate about the work we do at the World Trade Center, Kentucky. Many people hear the term international trade and they think of containers and shipping and tariffs. But international trade is ultimately relationships, people working together. It is about helping Kentucky companies expand their global opportunities. It is about helping businesses understand new markets. It's about creating jobs here at home or building relationships abroad. And perhaps most importantly, it is about positioning Kentucky to compete in a rapidly changing global economy. I could sit here and tell you all the statistics about international trade because I probably know them better than, you know, my birthday and things of that nature. I mean, look, $48 billion of exports left the state of Kentucky. We rank number 2 in the country when it comes to how international trade affects our GDP. The level of activity that happens here in the state is just phenomenal. And the transformation, in terms of us moving away from being an agricultural state to a manufacturing state, really started happening around the 80s when then Governor Martha Lane Collins recruited Toyota to come to Georgetown. And when Toyota came to Georgetown, 101 Japanese companies came with it. And today, foreign direct investment in Kentucky by Japanese company ranks in the tune of 258 companies. It's just phenomenal how that happens. And I could go on and on and on, but that's a different talk, or we can talk about it afterwards. So, today, Kentucky companies are exporting advanced products, aerospace components, healthcare solutions, food products, logistics expertise, and technology around the world. And what excites me most is that Kentucky has enormous untapped global potential. We have incredible companies, strong universities, a central geographic location, advanced manufacturing expertise, logistics capabilities, and a culture built on relationships and trust. These are all competitive advantages. And we at the World Trade Center, our mission is to help businesses navigate the international landscape. Sometimes through trade missions, through import-export assistance, education programs, market intelligence, and networking. I'll be remiss if I don't highlight two important dates that we're working on here at the World Trade Center on August the 25th and the 26th here in Louisville. More than 40 countries will descend on our city. The focus will be World Trade Day, where we will be giving out the Martha Lane Collins Award for International Trade Excellence. When I say 40 countries, these are, chambers of commerce from these countries, commercial attaches, people that are involved in helping Kentucky businesses, small, medium, and large businesses get involved in that. The other thing that we've been constantly doing is I've led a trade mission every year to Dubai. We go to GITEX, the largest international trade show, technology trade show in the world, B2B. We're going again. Hopefully things will settle by then, December of this year. I already have several Kentucky companies that have re-upped. They went with me last year. They're going to go again. Part of the reason, some of them already have contracts in that market. Some of them actually have offices in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. So anyhow, the idea is many small companies entering a global marketplace could feel intimidated, and understandably so. But the reality is, whether we like it or not, global events increasingly affect local economies. A conflict in one region affects supply chain everywhere. We remember that during COVID. Tariffs affect pricing. We remember that in the last year or so. And I can actually give you another talk about what happened since Liberation Day and what happened with the movement of trades and goods. Currency fluctuations affect competitiveness. Technology changes everything. The world is interconnected. 100% sure you all see that at the gas pump nowadays. And that means that communities like Louisville are more globally connected than ever before. Now, everything I've experienced, Jordan, Vienna, Kentucky, 9/11, Dubai, the recent regional tensions of bombs flying on top of my head, people sometimes ask me, are you optimistic? And the answer is yes, absolutely yes. Not because the world is simple, not because there are no risks, not because there are no challenges, but because I have a first-hand experience what happens when people build relationships across cultures. I've seen Americans welcomed in the Middle East. I've seen Arab students thrive in the United States. I've seen Kentucky businesses succeed internationally. I've seen communities reject division after tragedy. And I still believe the vast majority of people want peace, opportunity, and dignity. Because fear is easy. Division is easy. Isolation is easy. Building bridges is harder. But it's worth it. And in many ways, that has become the story of my life. A journey between cultures, between countries, between identities, trying to help people understand one another just a little bit better. So as we move into this, it's not coming out. Skip. Delete. I would encourage all of us to remain globally engaged, travel, learn, build relationships, support international education, support international business, stay curious about the world, because the more connected we are, the more we become human beings. The harder it becomes for us to fear one another. And ultimately, that may be one of the most important forms of leadership any of us can provide. Thank you.
Omar. We're going to take questions, all right? You're going to keep your microphone hot, but first, President Ken has not arrived yet, I don't think. All right, and so he told me, make sure before questions start that you place in Omar's hand the highly sought after, highly coveted Rotary Challenge coin, because on the back it does have our four-way test.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
And we want to challenge you to walk side by side with us as Rotarians around this world following that four-way test. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Oh, President Ken. Hello. Everybody say hi, President Ken. Okay, yes. That's right. You did on him. We're glad you made it wrong. All right, fellow Rotarians, please find your way over to the microphone behind Ashley and ask your question of Omar. And the pressure's on, Ashley, because the introductions of guests went exactly by the guidelines. Ashley, can you see the screen?
I can see the screen.
Ashley, what does that screen say?
Rotary members only, 30-second limit, questions only, no statements or speeches. Return to your seat after.
Thank you. We didn't even rehearse that. Okay, go Ashley. What's your question?
All right, President-elect Barbara. My question, Dr. Omar, thanks for being here today. I'm wondering, there's so many different Kentucky companies that are working in Dubai, working everywhere. But tell us about some of those. Trevor Paul mentioned the lottery one when he spoke about a month ago. I know Todd's thing, but just share some of those businesses that are working in Dubai and elsewhere.
Yeah, so thank you for your question. When I arrived there in 2009, and the place was really growing on a number of different levels, what I've noticed at that time in particular, it was predominantly British and Australian companies that were very active in that market. There weren't too many American companies that were active in that market. But as time has progressed, more and more American companies started penetrating and understanding the value of Dubai. Really, doing business in Dubai is not necessarily about doing business in Dubai. It's a hub. It gives you the opportunity to operate within the entire region. Just like we talk about us being a 7-hour drive from 2/3 of the U.S. population because of our world port and distribution center. Dubai uses the same methodology for a lot of their activities. We've been fortunate over the years that more and more Kentucky companies have been involved in that market. One of the companies that is actually headquartered in Lexington, a large company by the name of Valvoline, is actually a couple of years ago through some type of relationship, Aramco, the Saudi Arabian company, bought them out for just $2.6 billion. And they kept their headquarters in Lexington. That's one of the companies that has a major Dubai office, and I work with their Lexington outfit, but I also work with their Dubai office on a regular basis. The lottery company is EQL. They do gamification of the lottery. Brad Cummins, who's the founder and the CEO, that's one of the Louisville up-and-coming companies. They're also an Endeavor entrepreneur. He came with me last year on the trade mission because of the activities that he's doing in Abu Dhabi. One of the interesting things with this most recent conflict as it relates to Brad, and we were just talking about it, is a lot of the data was, a lot of the tension that was happening in the Middle East was very much focused on data and attacking the data. So his data was in Abu Dhabi, and all of a sudden his IT person tells him, you need to get it out of Abu Dhabi. So overnight you have to learn how to get the data out of Abu Dhabi and move it to Milan to keep it secure and things of that nature. With me is Steve Marks, who's my chair of the board, but his day job is he's the senior vice president of supply chain for Gevaudan Sense Color, the largest food color flavoring company in the world. And one day, as I'm walking in my neighborhood, I see their headquarters in Dubai. And, I snap a picture of it and I say, hey, Steve, is this your building? And I believe your HR person from here also lives in Dubai. So the world is totally interconnected. This idea of actually being in one place and activating in one place is the thing of the past. I work from anywhere and everywhere. Offices are a thing of the past, and pretty much for the last year and a half, I've spent more time in Dubai than I have in Louisville, Kentucky.
Thank you for coming today, Omar, and your talk has been very inspiring. I'm Larry Sloan, and I'm a retired salesperson, but I'm very involved with Helen's daughter, my partner Helen, who is involved in international students at Northwestern University. And I think that your take on international students, your own experience, speaks so highly of the idea, and Rotary is an international organization, of course, how important it is to have international exchanges of students in spite of all the negative news we've gotten in the past couple of years. So if you could expand on that thought, I'd really appreciate it.
Definitely, thank you. So, you heard earlier from my good friend Mary Ann talking about coming back after being overseas for 30 years and almost living in the twilight zone. Where in my case, it wasn't 30 years. I think I was gone for about 15 years full-time outside the United States. I mean, we'd come back and visit during the summer and what have you. And yes, things change, things shift. And I was getting nervous. I was getting nervous that, our competitive advantage was disappearing in so many different ways. When I arrived here in 1990, coming in from Vienna, Austria, I felt like, the US was a lot more advanced than the rest of the world, and the rest of the world was here. And part of it, I think, is that, in every shape and form, we had greater infrastructure, roads, airports. The movement of goods and people is very important in that perspective. But as the world continued to shift, and I think, the real shift in that is the internet came about. And it was much easier for the world to become flatter in that sense. And then eventually, now we've got AIA coming into effect. And so that gap between the US being here and the world being at a lower phase has shifted. And in some cases, it might not even be at the key scale. But it's extremely important for me to highlight in that perspective. What keeps us very competitive is our innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem in academia. No one can top that around the world. I work with American universities in the United Arab Emirates, all of them. I work with the American University of Sharjah, I work with the American University of Dubai. My daughter just spent a semester at the American University of Dubai. They're wonderful, and they give an American education, but being on campus and learning about the true American experience on campus. And one of the key advantages for it, when you're an international student and you're coming to America, being on a campus like the University of Louisville or the University of Kentucky gives you that soft landing to understand what the American culture is all about and to be part of the system. I remember a couple of things that happened to me during my experience as an undergrad. I thought I was just supposed to take classes. Someone looked at me and said, no, you need to participate in student life and you need to be involved in that. Really? Then I became the president of the Arab Student Union. Okay. And then not too long after that, I wanted to claim that I'm a rich kid and my parents sent me to America and they paid for my education. And then I recognized 6 months later, every kid, regardless if you're rich, poor, or whatever, would get a job. And I started flipping pizzas in the student center. So these things are amazing experiences. And I think, when you look around the world and see the number of prime ministers and people in government and in business, a lot of the key ingredient, and that is very clear in the UAE. A lot of the successful business people in the UAE and government leaders that are from the United Arab Emirates got their education in the United States and went back.
Omar, thank you for the presentation. I expected to hear numbers and statistics, and you gave us something much deeper, so thank you for that. I'm wondering, in the arena of world trade, if you could just kind of look at Louisville and Kentucky and assess how we do, maybe compared to our peer states and cities. I mean, I'm not so much interested in New York and California, but other, just from the business standpoint or even from the philosophical standpoint, how are we doing in Louisville and in the state compared to others?
Thank you. I'll answer this a number of different ways. One of the things is that I really think back in the 80s with Governor Martha Collins and the leadership that existed in the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development, they really had amazing foresight in the sense that they established the World Trade Center. And we are a licensed operation from the World Trade Center Association, headquartered in New York. There's 330 World Trade Centers in 91 countries. Back then, it used to cost anyone $25,000 to purchase a licensed name. Today, it's worth $300,000. And we're very fortunate here in the state of Kentucky to have a World Trade Center. The peer cities don't, and even if they do, they're not really functioning at the level they did. And one of the things that I also need to highlight, a lot of the World Trade Centers are typically city-based. They had the foresight to name it World Trade Center Kentucky, which upset our association in 2013 and actually sued us. We were called the Kentucky World Trade Center, and one of the agreements that we came to is that we'll continue to be the Kentucky World Trade Center, but we'll flip it around. We'll become the World Trade Center Kentucky. So that's one thing. The other thing is, you cannot deny that our peer cities are doing very well in terms of other activities, and they might have other titles associated with them. But I'd be remiss that if I don't highlight that I think some of the things around economic development in the state of Kentucky, whether it is at a local level or a state level, I think needs to be changed a little bit. I really think that we don't need necessarily to learn from our peer cities. We need to actually figure out a way to, because economic development is no longer about attracting the Toyotas of the world. Economic development is the world is very different right now. Yes, we want to attract the Toyotas of the world, but there's new ways to create new programs. And I think, last week you heard from Larry from Amplify, and I think one of the fundamental things that a community like Louisville needs to emphasize on is not necessarily attracting the big brand names. It's actually growing the homegrown companies. And if you look at history, that's really been the effect of a place like Louisville. It's the Humanas of the world. It's the Papa Johns of the world. It's the Long John Silvers of the world. These are the ones that, started small and then grew to what they were.
All right, thank you so very much. Round of applause for Omar. Omar, that was fabulous. Thank you so very much. I've known you for years and I learned so much more about you today. So how do we thread today's comments and today's speaker and your questions into next week? It is perfect. You couldn't have created this had you taken a PhD course in it. Y'all, it's not me. It's going to be Kevin Nolan from General Electric. That's right. We've been trying to get him here to our club for quite some time now, and he's going to come and talk about how to be relevant, innovative, and evolutionary in your operating philosophy, and how you're going to be innovative when you have been a long-time corporation serving in a certain way all around the world. But Kevin is going to talk about, let's get back to the basics, and let's talk about putting the user first. What an innovative, creative idea. Go to what the people want and figure out how to give it to them. All right, Those of you that were guests, we want you all to hop over here to the What is Rotary table. There's a sign floating in the air, and you will get to shake the hand of President Ken. That's right, because he's over there with the lead. We will see you all next week. Use the QR code, make your reservations, or send a note to Tracy or Delene before noon on Monday. Make it a great week, you all. And the meeting is